Like this one called the Yellow River in Macau. At one point, he was one of the wealthiest people there until the communists took power and his fortune was taken from him. My family was poor. My grandfather eventually rebuilt his wealth through the help of others, through credit from friends and family. He died a happy man. He had 6 children. One was my mother. He supported a wife through 1.5 taxis that he owned. Hi, I'm Andrew. This is Spike. We're Silveroak. We'll change the world through loans. The problem has to do with simple economics. Brick and mortar banking takes off at a GDP per capita of $10,000. Average GDP per capita, another Asian geography, India, $3,800. Silveroak addresses the credit problem through working capital. Here's the breakout of companies, small enterprises in India. You can see there are more service enterprises than manufacturing enterprises, but in fact, manufacturing enterprises have lumpier and larger working capital needs. Here's their working capital cycle. So if you think about a multinational corporation, how quickly are they going to pay a small business in India? 30 days? 60 days? Apple's average payables is over 80 days. It can be even more onerous in the emerging markets. So you see we have a problem when a small business needs to pay their people every month, and they get paid only every 90 or 120 days by Apple. Here's our solution. Before we go to that, we came up with this idea when I was working in an emerging markets venture capital fund. There we screened 700 of the best startups. We analyzed 200 to 300, and I ran due diligence on 20 to 30 of the leading Series B to growth stage startups. Our platform unites lenders in the developed world with borrowers in the emerging market small businesses. We utilize credit analysis algorithms and deliver capital via mobile delivery. Here's what our portal will look like eventually. You see in the lower left-hand side, lenders look like individuals. But we know the main growth will come through institutional investors. Our product is a consequence of hedge fund demand. So Spike and I know the leading hedge funds that invest in the peer security space. Spike and I have a long-standing development finance interest. I studied economics as an undergrad to work at the World Bank. Spike worked at the Small Business Enterprise at Wharton. He studies international studies at Cambridge. Here's what we saw. 70% of small businesses in the emerging markets don't have access outside financing. Compare this with the US. 90% of small businesses either have access outside financing or can seek it. The total problem is $2.5 trillion. That's unmet demand of small businesses in the emerging markets. We take existing models, combine them, and derive a new model. We have the geography of Kiva and the small business focus of Funding Circle. Our focus is working capital invoice financing in tens of thousands of dollars. We predict a rate of return of 10+% with less than 0.5% of defaults. This is from our hedge fund relationships, research from our hedge fund relationships. Development finance experts call what we're looking at the missing middle. On the left-hand side are entities that demand capital. On the right-hand side are suppliers of capital. At the top, you have capital markets. At the bottom, you have microfinance. We play in the space in between. Here's a few names that break out. You see us squarely in the middle here. And the other notable name is Aztec Exchange. They do invoice financing in the emerging markets. In the first 6 months, they had 200 suppliers of invoices. They believe they can do $30 billion in transactions a year, and they call the market $14 trillion. Eventually, our target market is India for 3 reasons. 1, it's a huge market. 2, technological adoption due to its history as an outsourcing center. 3, macroeconomic variables, rising disposable incomes and middle class. 22% of Indian GDP comes from small businesses, and their unmet demand for capital is $19 billion. Here's our team. I'm Andrew. I'm the business founder. I did a master's in finance in Cambridge. Thereafter was at Amadeus Capital as part of their emerging markets fund. Prior, I worked at a fund of funds. Some of my former fund managers invest in pure securities. Nico is our technical founder. Worked in a few startups. Can build everything from your IKEA chair to a machine learning algorithm. His thesis focused on predicting how people move through cities based upon their social media data. And here's Spike to introduce himself.
I'm Spike. I'm currently at Cambridge studying economic development. Previously was at Blackstone, where I helped build their $8 billion housing business.
Great. We're Silveroak. We're going to change the world. Come join us.